Under the endless darkness of space, the stars were silent. Far beyond the reach of human colonies, something old drifted between galaxies, cracked. Dying alien relay, spinning slowly, forgotten by all. Its faint light blinked every few seconds, like a heartbeat trying to keep time against eternity. Somewhere deep inside the dead metal, a signal pulsed. It was not a message of hope. It was not even a call for help. It was a warning meant to be left unanswered. The signal began in a language no human had ever heard before, sharp, broken syllables carried on waves of static. It was faint, like a whisper carried across oceans. Most of it was distorted, fragments scattered like torn pages in the void. But buried in the noise was one line, perfectly clear, in an old interstellar trade dialect. Stay away, they will. Kill everything that comes. On the edge of human space, in a lonely deep space listening post, the message was caught by accident. The outpost's crew, only 6 people, stared at the readout, unsure what they had found. Standard protocol said to log it, store it, and forget it. This was not humanity's problem. But protocol was not in the nature of humans. Within hours, the signal was forwarded to Earth. In the high orbital command tower above New Geneva, Admiral Ria Juno read the transcript 3 times before leaning back in her chair. She was a woman who had lived her life between the stars, a veteran of more battles than she cared to count. Her eyes were cold steel, but somewhere behind them was a spark, dangerous one. Others might hear a warning and turn away. Juno heard a challenge. The Fleet Council argued for days. Some said it was suicide to follow a signal meant to drive travelers away. Others said humanity had no right to interfere. But Juno's voice carried weight. She reminded them that humanity's survival had never come from hiding it, had come from facing the unknown head-on. No alien had called for help. No one had invited them. But that was exactly why they had to go, if something out there was. Killing civilizations, it was only a matter of time before it came for theirs. When the decision came, it was quiet but final. Project Wayfarer was activated. The largest deep space fleet in history began preparation. Had 15 ships combat cruisers, science vessels, and 2 massive carriers would travel beyond charted territory. They would find the source of the signal and learn what threat could make an entire species send such a desperate warning. The crews came from every part of Earth and her colony's seasoned soldiers, wide-eyed scientists, engineers who could repair engines with little more than wire and stubbornness. The younger recruits joked about exploring new worlds. The veterans did not laugh. They had seen enough war to know that no one sends a warning across light years unless they have no other choice. 3 weeks later, the fleet stood ready in the cold void of the outer dockyards. Ships floated like silent predators in the dark, their hulls painted in deep black and silver. The carrier Resolute, flagship of the mission, hung in the center like a fortress. From its bridge, Admiral Juno looked out over the armada, her second in command. Commander Elias Merrick stood beside her, his expression tight. "This is still a bad idea," Merrick said quietly. "It's the only idea," Juno replied. "If we don't face what's out there, we'll face it here. When it comes here, we won't have the advantage." The launch was without ceremony. Engines flared, ships slipped free of their docks, and one by one they vanished into the black, their drives burning trails into nothingness. The coordinates from the alien signal lay beyond any human map. It would take weeks just to cross the outer void. Days passed in uneasy silence. At first, the crew filled the time with conversation, training, and small celebrations. But as the fleet moved farther from human space, the stars grew stranger. Some glowed in impossible colors. Others flickered as if hidden behind moving shadows. Long-range sensors began picking up faint, untraceable signals, static bursts that came and went, never repeating, as if something out there was watching. One night, as the fleet's ships drifted in quiet formation, the science vessel Kepler's Eye reported a discovery. A faint energy signature ahead, drifting with no heat and no motion. It matched nothing in human records. And curiosity pulled them closer. When the object came into view, even the most hardened veterans went silent. It was a ship-massive alien, and broken nearly in half. Its surface was scarred by impacts, blackened by fire. No lights shone inside. It was like a corpse in space, frozen in the moment of death. Boarding teams were sent across in armored shuttles. Their light swept through corridors filled with dust and floating debris. The walls bore deep scratches, long, uneven gouges, as though something had clawed at the metal. Every surface carried a strange residue, faintly iridescent in the beam. Of their lamps, in the control room, they found signs of the last moment's chairs overturned, consoles shattered, and traces of blood, though none of it was human. One wall was covered in markings, symbols burned into the metal in dozens of alien languages. Most were untranslatable, but one message, written in shaky English, was fresh enough to still shine with wetness. "Why? Did you come?" The words were not old. Whoever had written them had been here recently. The team searched deeper into the ship, a sealed cryo chamber at the far end. They found him. He was small by human standards, his skin pale silver, his limbs long and thin. His eyes were closed, his breath slow. His hands clutched something, a jagged black shard, as if his life depended on holding it. Before the team could move him, the Resolute's hull sensors blared a warning. Something massive brushed against the outside of the derelict. It was light, but it was followed by a sound no one should hear in space, a deep, resonant scraping. As if claws were dragging across metal, Admiral Juno's voice cut through the coms, sharp and controlled. "All teams, return to your ships. Now." The boarding shuttles pulled away, their thrusters burning bright. Behind them, the alien vessel drifted, silent once more. But in the black beyond it, something shifted, too big to be a ship, too smooth to be an asteroid. It moved with purpose, and it was following them. And so humanity's first step into the unknown had already been taken. They had not been called, they had not been wanted, but they had come anyway. And whatever had left that warning was now awake to their presence. The alien was carried aboard the Resolute under heavy guard. His body was frail, his breathing shallow, but his grip on the black shard never loosened. Medics wanted to take it from him for examination, but the moment they tried, his eyes snapped open. He let out a sound that was neither a scream nor a word, more like a warning, sharp and urgent. They left the shard in his hands. Admiral Juno stood in the medbay, watching from behind a glass barrier. "How long until he wakes fully?" asked. "Could be hours, could be days," the chief medic replied. "His biology's strange, closer to cephalopod than mammal. He's been in cryo far too long." Merrick entered with a grim look. "Sensors picked up something after we left." The derelict. No visuals, just mass displacement. Whatever it is, it's big. It's following us. Juno's eyes didn't leave the alien. Distance. 2 million kilometers. It's keeping pace, never closing, never falling back. The alien's eyes flickered open then, just for a moment, locking on to Juno through the glass. His lips moved silently. She could almost read the shape of the word run. The bridge grew tense over the next hours. The fleet moved at maximum cruising speed, but the shadow in their sensors never vanished. It felt like a predator keeping just out of sight, waiting for the right moment to strike. On the 5th day, after leaving the derelict, the Kepler's eye picked up another anomaly, an object drifting in the dark ahead. It was larger than the first wreck and older. Scans showed no power, no heat signatures, but a faint, rhythmic vibration. Against all reason, Juno ordered the fleet closer. As the shape resolved in the viewports, the crew saw that it was not a ship at all, but a station. Its design, alien, ring-shaped. Its surface covered in strange protrusions. Some of them were moving. The science team insisted on boarding. Juno sent 2 squads with them. Inside, the air was cold and thin. Every wall was lined with strange crystal panels that pulsed faintly when touched. The vibrations they had detected were coming from deep within the station. The deeper they went, the more signs of violence they found. Broken weapons littered the floors. Hull panels were buckled inward, as if something had forced its way inside. Then came the smell. Even through their sealed suits, it seeped in thick, metallic, and wrong. They found the source in a wide chamber at the station's heart, dozens of alien bodies twisted and torn apart, and the wounds were unlike any weapon damaged the humans had seen. It looked more like feeding. One of the science officers bent over a console, brushing away dust. "This is a log," she said, excitement and fear in her voice. I think it's her voice cut off. The crystals in the walls flared bright red. The vibration deepened, becoming a low, rolling hum that rattled through their bones. On the Resolute's bridge, alarms screamed. Merrick's voice was sharp. "Overcomes, multiple contacts inbound. Fast." It came out of nowhere. Through the forward viewport, something emerged from the darkness sleek. Black shapes that moved like living things, their surfaces glistening as if wet. No two were exactly alike, but all had the same feature: a mouth lined with endless teeth. They were not ships. The boarding teams were ordered to retreat. But as they ran, the station seemed to come alive, its corridors, twisting, sealing, trying to keep them inside. Behind them, the hum grew louder, and the bodies on the floor began to shift, pulled by something unseen. On the bridge, Juno's jaw tightened. "Open fire," she ordered. The Resolute's cannons lit the void, tearing into the first of the shapes. The blast hit hard, and the thing shuddered before spinning away, black fluid spilling into space. For a heartbeat, the bridge went silent. Then the alien in the medbay sat upright, eyes wide, his voice carrying through the ship's intercom. Without touching a single button? No one has ever done that before. The humans didn't understand yet, but the alien did. They had just done something no other species had survived long enough to try. And now, the hunters had taken notice. The alien refused food, water, and rest. He sat on the medbay cot, with his knees drawn to his chest, clutching the black shard as though it were the only thing keeping him alive. His silver skin glistened faintly in the dim light, and his black eyes followed Admiral Juno when she stepped into the room. "You understand me now?" he said in a low, rasping voice. It wasn't a question. His accent was strange, the words uneven, but his meaning was clear. Juno crossed her arms. "You spoke through our ship's systems without touching a terminal. I'd say the understanding goes both ways." The alien tilted his head. "You harmed one of them. You don't understand what you've done." "What are they?" Merrick asked from the doorway. For a long moment, the alien said nothing. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he replied, "Eaters. That is the name my people gave them. They are not ships, they're not beasts. They are hunger given shape. They eat worlds, suns, and thought." Juno frowned. "Thought?" The alien nodded slowly. "They consume minds, memory, knowledge, every trace of what a species is. When they finish, it is as though that species never existed." Silence settled over the room. "We found your warning signal," Juno said at last. "I send it at all if nothing can stop them." The alien's gaze dropped to the shard in his hands. "This is part of what they truly are. When one of them dies, rare, almost impossibly, leaves behind a fragment. My people believed the shards are pieces of their core, the part that allows them to exist between moments. If the core is destroyed, perhaps they can die forever." Studied the jagged black piece. It looked inert, lifeless, but when she stared too long, she felt a strange pressure in the back of her mind, like something was staring back. The alien's voice hardened. "Now that you carry it, they will follow you. They will not stop. The shard sings to them across the dark." On the bridge, the crew was already feeling the pressure. Reports came in from multiple ships, short flashes of motion on long range. Sensors, shadows that vanished before being locked by targeting systems. The Eaters weren't attacking, they were circling. The science team begged for more time to study the shard, but Juno knew waiting was a trap. "To plot a course," she ordered. "We find the source of the warning. If there's anything else out here alive, we need allies." It took 5 days to reach the coordinates buried in the original signal. On the final approach, the fleet emerged into a system with a dim red star and 3 planets. The second planet shimmered faintly in their sensors, surrounded by a dense field of debris. As they drew closer, the truth became clear. The debris wasn't rock. It was wreckage. Dozens, maybe hundreds, of ships floated in the dead orbit of the world below. Some were alien designs the humans had never seen. Others looked eerily similar to the derelict they had already explored. All of them were torn apart, their surfaces scarred by the same deep claw marks. The alien's breath hitched when the planet came into view. This was my home. Juno's jaw tightened. They came here first. Long ago. My people thought we had escaped. We were. Wrong. The Kepler's eye scanned the planet and found faint life signs weak, scattered deep underground. But the readings were unstable, as if something was moving on the surface above them. Then the sensors caught at several large, dark shapes gliding across the planet's surface, moving with impossible speed. Every few seconds, one of them looked up, and the readings spiked in strange, almost biological ways. Merrick muttered under his breath, "They know we're here." Before Juno could respond, the long-range alarms screamed. The shadows that had been trailing them in the void had arrived in full force. Dozens of black living shapes closed in from all directions, their jagged maws opening wide. The alien looked at Juno, his voice shaking. "Oh, you will see why no one comes when we call." And for the first time since leaving human space, Juno felt something she had never allowed herself to feel before: fear. The first attack came without warning. One moment, the fleet floated in high orbit above the Red Star's second planet. The next, the void around them erupted in movement, black shapes sliding through space with impossible grace, their surfaces rippling like living muscle. They did not fire weapons. They were the weapons. The Resolute's targeting systems struggled to lock on. The Eaters moved too fast, weaving through the debris field as though it were nothing. One of them slammed directly into a smaller escort ship, wrapping its long, serrated limbs around the hull. The crew had only seconds to scream before the thing tore the vessel in half. "Open fire." Admiral Juno's voice cut through the chaos. The fleet's guns roared to life, beams and rail slugs tearing into the nearest shapes. One blast caught, an Eater full in its center mass, ripping away chunks of black flesh. The creature convulsed, its mouth opening in a silent scream before it drifted lifeless into the debris. But for every one they hit, 3 more closed in. The alien survivor clutched the black shard on the Resolute's medbay floor, his voice whispering words in his own tongue, prayers, maybe, or curses. Through the ship's coms, his voice bled into English. "They know now. You can hurt them." That fact made the battle worse. The Eaters stopped circling and began attacking with a terrifying focus, swarming the Resolute and its escorts. One slammed into the flagship's port side, claws biting into armor. Crew members on the bridge felt the impact through the deck. Plating. "Concentrate fire on the attachment points," Merrick barked. Cannons hammered the creature until one limb tore free, spilling a stream of that dark fluid into space. The Eater recoiled, twisting in pain, but another immediately took its place. Meanwhile, Kepler's eye broke away from formation, diving low toward the planet's surface. "We can't win up here," their captain yelled over the coms. "We'll find the survivors underground? Maybe they know something we don't." Juno wanted to argue, but she knew he was right. "Cover them," she ordered. 2 cruisers followed the Kepler's eye down, exchanging fire with Eaters that dove after them. On the surface, the dark shapes shifted, now clearly aware that prey was coming closer. Back in orbit, the fight turned desperate. One of the carriers, the Vanguard, took a hit from 2 Eaters at once. Its engines went dark, spinning the massive vessel into the debris field. Seconds later, an explosion bloomed, bright white, as the Eaters tore into its reactor. The light faded, quickly, leaving only the drifting remains. The alien's voice returned over coms, sharper now. "They are drawn to fear. Your panic feeds them. You must strike without it, or you will lose." Juno didn't know if that was superstition or truth, but she used it anyway. "Calm your fire. Focus on aim, not speed. Every shot must kill." Slowly, the humans adapted. Instead of chasing the darting shadows, they laid traps firing not at the eaters, but at the space they would be in. The first kill, under this method, was clean a rail slug piercing through an eater's head, splitting it in two. The shift was small, but it bought them breathing room. Enough for the Kepler's eye to send a transmission from the planet below. "We found them. Survivors, dozens of them. They know a way to strike back." Juno didn't allow herself relief. She knew what came next. The eaters realized. The humans had allies. They'd hit the planet harder than ever before. And sure enough, the shadows began to turn, not toward the fleet now, but toward the world beneath them. The red star's light caught on their moving forms, making them look like a tide of black knives descending toward the surface. Juno gripped the arm of her chair. "All ships," she said, "follow them." The humans had just won their first real fight against the eaters. But the battle for the last free world was about to begin. The fleet plunged into the planet's thin upper atmosphere, engines flaring as they pursued the black tide. The eaters moved like a living storm, sweeping down toward the surface in perfect silence. Below, the red-lit world spread out deserts of rust-colored rock, cracked canyons, and the faint glimmer of something buried deep beneath the ground. The Kepler's eye led the descent. Weaving between jagged mountain peaks toward a narrow canyon, the survivors were waiting there, hidden, in a network of caverns carved into the rock. As Juno's dropships broke through the dust-filled air, she saw them for the first time, thin, silver-skinned figures like the alien aboard her ship, but gaunt, hollow-eyed. Their clothes torn, there were barely 100 of them. Commander Merrick landed with the first wave of ground troops. The air was harsh, biting at exposed skin, but the survivors didn't flinch. An elder among them stepped forward, leaning on a staff made from the spine of some long-dead creature. His voice was rough from disuse. "You carry the shard," he said, glancing toward Juno's ship in the sky. "That means they will come here in force. You have brought the storm." Before Merrick could argue, the elder lifted his staff and pointed to the horizon. Dust clouds were rising fast. The eaters were coming. Juno's voice cut in. "Overcomes. We'll hold them off from orbit. Get those people underground and keep them there." Above, the battle reignited. The fleet formed a defensive ring over the canyon, cannons, and missile pods firing at the first wave of descending eaters. The creatures hit back hard, slamming into ship hulls, ripping through armor with their claws. One cruiser lost power and fell, its flaming wreckage crashing into the mountains. On the ground, the eaters that made it through were faster than anything human troops had faced. They moved in a blur, their jagged limbs cutting through rock and steel alike. Pulse rifles barely slowed them, but heavy plasma fire from the dropships burned deep, leaving blackened holes in their hides. Merrick fought alongside the alien survivors, who wielded strange weapons rods, tipped with crystal, glowing faintly. When struck against an eater's body, the crystals flared and the creature screamed, its movements faltering. The elder explained between breaths, "These are from their dead. Fragments like your shard. Only these can wound them deeply, but they are rare. My people have guarded them for generations." Juno heard this from orbit and made a choice. Gather every crystal they have. If that's the only thing that can kill them, we're going to use it. But the eaters were relentless. The second wave hit the planet like a black rain, dozens of them tearing into the canyon walls, trying to collapse the tunnels where the survivors hid. Merrick called for an orbital strike. The Resolute dropped a precision barrage that shattered rock and vaporized 3 of the creatures in a single blast. Still, the elder shook his head. This is only the beginning. "Cannot take us, they will call the greater ones. If that happens, nothing will survive." Juno's mind was already moving ahead. "Then we take the fight to them before that happens. If they're drawn to the shard, we use it to lead them away from this world." It was a gamble, but the alternative was certain death. The plan was simple. Leave a small fleet behind too. Guard the survivors, while the Resolute and 2 other warships carried the shard out into deep space. Drawing the eaters after them, the alien survivor from the medbay insisted on joining the mission. "You do not understand what hunts you," he told Juno. "You will not make it far without someone who does." By the time the last of the eaters withdrew from the canyon, The ground was scorched and littered with their corpses, more than had ever been killed in a single battle. Humanity had bought the survivors time, but at a cost. 3 ships were gone. Hundreds of crew were dead or missing. As the Resolute prepared to break orbit, Merrick looked out at the red horizon. "You think they'll follow?" Juno glanced toward the black shard resting in its containment case. "They'll follow," she said quietly. "That's exactly what we want." The engines roared, and the ship lifted toward the stars, carrying death in its hold, and a plan that could either save a world or doom them all. The rift was not on any official star chart. It wasn't a place so much as a wound on endless. Tear in the skin of space, where light bent wrong and time had no meaning. The alien survivor had described it as the scar left when something tried to eat reality itself. From the bridge of the Resolute, Admiral Juno watched the rift swell in the forward viewport. It looked like a storm frozen in place. Spirals of black and silver swirling around a core of absolute nothing. The edges shimmered like heat haze, but there was no warmth, only cold. Behind them, the 2 remaining escort warships kept tight formation. The rest of the fleet was far away now, holding position with the survivors they had saved. Juno's plan was simple. Enter the rift with the shard. Draw the Eaters away from inhabited space. And if they were lucky, find the nest the alien had spoken of. "Entering rift space in 2 minutes, Merrick reported, his voice tight. "Sensors are already going strange. Getting ghost readings from—" The alien stood near the forward rail, his silver skin catching the pale light from the rift. "Inside, you will see things that are not," he said. "Some will be memories. Some will be futures. All will try to hold you." The transition was instant. One moment, stars filled the viewport. The next, they were gone, replaced by an endless, shifting void. Colors bled and twisted into shapes that were almost familiar, mountains that dissolved into oceans, cities that melted into deserts, faces that became strangers. Alarms blared as the ship's instruments went wild. Timestamps flickered and reset. Engine readings looped backward. On the tactical display, a faint blip appeared off the port bow, then another, identical directly behind them. Merrick stared. "That's us. Both of us. They can move in ways you cannot," the alien said. "And here, they are not bound to now." Oh. The crew began seeing things. A gunner swore she saw her sister dead for years walking down the corridor. Navigator reported being on Mars for several seconds before snapping back to his console. Every sight, every sound, was designed to pull them away from the mission. Then the Resolute's long-range sensors picked up something massive ahead. It was a ship human designed, but its registry number didn't match any in the fleet's records. The hull was scorched, and a voice crackled over the comms. "This is the Resolute. Do not enter the rift. You won't make it out." Juno stared at the transmission. The voice was hers. Older. Weary. The connection died before she could respond. Before the crew could process it, the shadows came. They emerged from the shifting void like predators rising from deep water eaters. Dozens of them, moving in jerks and flickers as though skipping through frames of reality. They struck without closing the distance, their claws and teeth flashing. Into existence, right against the hull. Hull breaches ripped through the Resolute's midsection. One escort ship vanished entirely, replaced for a moment by its shattered remains before collapsing into nothingness. The second was caught by 2 Eaters at once, its reactor going critical in a flash that seemed to last both an instant and a year. The alien gripped the shard, eyes wide. "They're testing you," he said, "seeing if you can survive their home." Juno locked eyes with him. "Then we show them we can." She ordered the ship deeper into the rift, straight toward the source of a strange rhythmic signal the science team had detected. It was faint, but it pulsed in the same pattern as the shard in the alien's hands. The further they followed it, the more the Eaters pressed in, their movements faster, more erratic. Finally, the rift opened up into a vast expanse of graveyard. Of galaxies, their suns dead, their worlds shattered. In the center floated something the size of a moon, black and alive, its surface shifting like muscle. The shard in the alien's hands pulsed bright for the first time. "This is it," he whispered the nest. And in the darkness around them, hundreds of shapes began to move. The nest was alive. From a distance, it looked like a dark moon. But as the Resolute and her lone escort drifted closer, the surface shifted in slow, muscular ripples. Da-da-da-da. Fissures opened and closed like breathing wounds, and from each one poured faint streams of black mist that vanished into the rift's endless void. Juno stood at the center of the bridge, eyes locked on the thing. "Targeting scans," she asked. "Trying," Merrick said. "It's moving under our targeting beams, like it knows we're watching." The alien gripped the shard tightly, his voice low. "It is aware of you. It has been since you touched the fragment. This is not just a nest. This is the heart, the first of them, the one that made the rest." The Resolute crept forward, weapons armed. The faint signal they had followed through the rift now thundered through the ship's systems, shaking the consoles as though the shard itself was calling to its source. Then the nest reacted. The surface split wide, revealing a pit so deep it swallowed light. From that darkness, shapes began to emerge larger than any eater they had faced before. Some were the size of cruisers, others rivaled the Resolute itself. Their skin glistened with the same black sheen. But their forms were more elaborate, multiple mouths, limbs splitting and reforming, eyes opening in places that shouldn't have eyes, contacts dozens, no, hundreds, the tactical officer shouted. "Then we start thinning the swarm," Juno ordered. "Open fire." The first salvo lit the void. Rail slugs punched holes clean through the smaller ones. Plasma bursts melted flesh into drifting clouds, but the swarm didn't break. It came on faster, using the rift's broken physics to twist and vanish, only to reappear directly against the Resolute's hull. One slammed into the starboard side, claws shearing away armor. Another wrapped its limbs around the escort ship, tearing at it like prey. Juno ordered every gun to focus on the attackers, but for each one they killed, more poured out of the nest. The alien survivor turned to Juno, voice sharp. "You cannot kill them all. You must strike the heart. Only then will they scatter." "The heart's inside that thing," Merrick said, eyes on the pit. "And the moment we get close, they'll bury us in bodies." Juno's gaze hardened. "Then we make the move." Shh. She ordered the escort to break away and fire on the rifts surrounding debris fields, sending chunks of shattered asteroid drifting toward the swarm. The Resolute's main guns cut through the larger eaters, making just enough space for a direct run at the pit. The closer they came, the more the nest reacted. The rippling surface shifted, forming jagged ridges that rose like teeth, tendrils. A black muscle lashed out, striking at the Resolute's shields with bone-shaking force. Inside, the alien pressed the shard to his chest. "It will not let you near. It knows why you have come, and we give it no choice," Juno said. "Arm the shard." The science team had built a containment device around the fragment, wiring it into the ship's main reactor. If detonated, inside the nest, it could destabilize the entire structure at least. That was the theory. The alien warned that it could also destroy the Resolute, but Juno didn't blink. The final push began. The Resolute dove straight into the pit's yawning mouth, weaving through the swarm with engines burning at redline. Every surface of the nest seemed to pulse now, as if it were alive with rage, and then they saw it deep inside the chasm, floating. In a hollow chamber of shifting black walls was a vast, pulsating core. It was unlike the others, smooth, almost glassy, with faint streams of light flickering inside. The first mind, the alien whispered, "Kill it, and you wound them all." Juno gripped the arm of her chair. "All batteries, fire for effect." Core began to move, turning toward them, and the swarm's screams filled the rift like a storm. The Resolute's guns tore into it, shattering pieces of its smooth shell. The alien jammed the shard into its containment detonator, eyes locked on the target. "Now," Juno shouted. The Resolute surged forward, straight into the heart of the Nesta. And as the alien triggered the detonation, the rift itself seemed to scream. The explosion was not light, it was something deeper. It's like the tearing of fabric no one could see. The Resolute's bridge went dark for an instant, every display flickering to static. The crew felt it more than heard it, a soundless pressure that clawed at their bones, as if the universe itself had taken a breath and held it. The nest's core fractured in silence. Thin cracks spread across its smooth surface, glowing with an inner brilliance that looked almost alive. Then, in one blinding surge, the core collapsed inward, pulling everything around it into a swirling singularity of black and light. The Eaters screamed. It was not a sound carried through cums or vacuum, it was in their minds. A raw, ancient cry of rage and pain that made every human aboard grit their teeth and clutch their skulls. Out in the rift, the swarm broke formation. Some fled into the darkness. Others disintegrated as the shockwave tore through them. Reactor holding at 50%, Merrick reported, his voice shaking. Shields are fried, holes breached in 3 sections, but we're alive. Not for long if we don't get out of here, Juno said. Helm full burn. Get us clear before that thing takes us with it. The Resolute clawed its way through collapsing space. The rift was unraveling, colors bleeding into black distances, folding in on themselves. Jagged shards of dead reality spun like knives. The escort ship, battered and limping, fell in alongside them, its engine sputtering. Behind them, the nest imploded, sending one last wave of force rippling outward. It wasn't fire. It wasn't shrapnel. It was absence. Whole sections of space winked out, leaving nothing behind. They burst free of the rift's edge with seconds to spare. Stars filled the viewport again, cold and steady. The crew exhaled, the weight in their chests finally easing. We did it, Merrick said, almost as if he didn't believe it. The alien cut him off. No, you wounded it, but you did not kill it. A silence fell over the bridge. Juno turned slowly. Explain. The alien's silver eyes were unblinking. The first mind is not the only mind. The Eaters are not one creature. They are many. Connected. You destroyed one heart, but others beat in other dark places. And now, hesitated, his voice dropping lower, now they know your scent. Juno's grip tightened on the railing. How long before they follow? I do not know, he admitted. But they will come, they always come. The alien stepped closer to the viewport, staring into the stars. When they arrive, they will not send hunters. They will send an ocean. The Resolute limped toward the fleet's rendezvous point, the shard's containment device now empty and cold. The survivors they had rescued would live to see another day, but every man and woman aboard knew that day was only borrowed time. Far behind them, deep in some unseen corner of the universe, something vast stirred, and this time it was looking toward the Milky Way.